Hey, today we're talking with Navy veteran Douglas James from the douglasjames.com. So, Douglas, we got a lot of cool things to talk about. You were in the Navy for 10 years. So, before we get to talking about business and veteran entrepreneurship, take us back. Tell us what you did in the Navy.
Yeah, Joe, thanks for having me. Happy to be here. Um, yeah, so in the Navy, I was a hospital corpsman for 10 years.
Hoorah.
I was supposed to be started off as an IT, but I guess I ran into some issues with my recruiter, who hasn't. um, yeah, so I spent 10 years as a
Those
hospital
stories.
corpsman. Yeah, that's a whole story in itself. But it was cool. I got to, travel all over the world. Stationed in Naples, Italy for a few years. Went on the USNS Mercy out to some Pacific Islands. Eventually became a lab tech as well. Trained with the Marines became a 8404 FMF corpsman.
Hoorah.
Um, didn't actually deploy green side. But did get the training. I was mostly blue side in my time. So
Yeah. When I was at the Army's Command General Staff College, I used to teach the Navy capabilities course to all the mostly Army, but there was always a token Air Force and foreign officer student in there, or Marine. And it's funny because a lot of like the Air Force and the Army, they don't realize that the Marine Corps doesn't have its own medical people. Like we don't have medics, we don't have doctors, we don't have chaplains, we don't have any of that stuff ourselves. The Navy provides all that for us. So I used to say we have no medical, no religion, no possession.
right,
So
right.
um so the Navy provides us our corpsmen, and to be an FMF corpsman is Fleet Marine Force corpsman, which means you go serve with the Marine Corps. And there's a rich, phenomenal history of Navy corpsmen serving with Marine units throughout history and combat operations, and just a phenomenal amount of um, Navy corpsmen that have received not only the Medal of Honor and Silver Star and everything else, serving with Marines on the ground. So good on you. Your recruiter, you might have pissed off your recruiter, but you still must have been a pretty squared away guy, because not everybody gets to become a Navy corpsman.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so basically what happened with that was, growing up, from New Orleans, Louisiana. So growing up, I loved technology, computers, played video games all the time. I watched tech TV. Uh, so I basically got to the point where I was, bartending every night till 4 a.m. after high school, and my family was like, "Hey, you're gonna, go to college, you're gonna go to the military, or you're gonna get the f out of our house." So that was the ultimatum they gave me.
Yeah.
And I graduated high school with like a 1.9 GPA. Like I really shouldn't have
Nice.
graduated. I should,
Nice.
yeah, it was, like just always in my own head, not in a bad way, like in the creative sense, like wanting to do stuff, build stuff, art. I would draw all the time, so I was very much into arts. So I decided, I didn't want to piss off my family and have them kick me out of their house. I was a 19-year-old kid, was not a straight A student at all, was not going to go to college. So I was like, let me do this Navy thing. So I ended up joining Navy, picked IT because of, I was into computers, but got into, boot camp. And around day nine, they have that moment of truth. They're like, hey, if you ever smoked weed, or if you ever stole, or if you ever been to jail, like, we're gonna find out. Just tell us right now. Right. And
Don't
if you're
fall for it.
yeah, so I had a little, when I was 17, I worked for Target, and I made some bad mistakes there. I stole and shoplifted while I worked there, while I was working in the electronics department. And I got caught. I owned up to it when they caught me. I confessed everything, and they put me in this first offenders program. And I went through that program for a year, went to the classes every week, paid a little bit of money every month, like $100 a month. When I joined the Navy, the recruiter was like, "Oh, we're gonna, make sure that's expunged and off your record. Oh, you're in the first offenders program. Oh, you'll be good. You were just a kid." I'm like, "Okay, sweet." So,
Hmm.
the recruiter was like, "I got your back," and he did tell me, if they ever ask you about this, just say no, just deny it. I'm like, "All right," but when you get
Yep.
in boot camp and you're an 18, 19-year-old kid, and you got this, really buff chief like yelling at your face,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, you know what? I'm just gonna. It's expunged. It's okay, right? It's all good. So I get into there. They're doing a security clearance, because ITs, you need the top secret security clearance, right? Corpsman, you just need a secret.
Yep.
And he opens a folder. First questions he asked me, like, have you ever been to jail? I was like, yeah, I've been to jail, stole from Target when I was 17, but my recruiter took care of it. It's expunged. He immediately just closed the file. He's like, I'm sorry, you don't qualify. You're gonna have to go pick a different NEC. And I was just devastated. I was like, what? That's what I joined the Navy to do, is to be in IT, to work on computers and networks and stuff, So call my mom, call my grandma. My grandma was like, come home. My mom's like, hey, I support you, do whatever you want. My mom has, on her side, probably 7 doctors and pharmacists and successful medical people. She's from Guatemala. Um, my dad's like Irish Italian, so I kind of got a little bit of a mix. But yeah, so I chose Corpsman, and I'm glad I did. I got to do and see amazing things, and it brought me to where I'm at today. So
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, there's many MOS stories and moment of truth. Moment of truth stories. Like when everybody comes to me about the military, I'm like, okay, whatever lie you tell on day one, you stick with that lie until you die. You don't ever come clean, because once it's out there, man. But I mean, some guys get sent home for fraudulent enlistment. Oh, you didn't tell us about that? Oh, fraudulent enlistment. Boom, they'll send you home. So, I mean, you're lucky that it only resulted in an MOS change. So, um,
yeah.
rolled over to a pretty good one at that. So, you were in the Navy for 10 years. Tell us about the end of your time in the Navy and getting out, and what your transition was like.
Yeah, so in the Navy for 10 years, I ended up, bounced all over the place. Went to Naples for 2 years, came to San Diego, working at Balboa. That's where I'm at right now. Um, I went on a deployment, went on USNS Mercy back early 2015. Went to, Papua New Guinea, Fiji, Philippines, Vietnam, that whole tour down here in the Pacific, Guam, and Hawaii a couple times, which is a vacation basically. But yeah, I mean, doing that work in the islands, right? I mean, we were out there, literally building schools, building, stuff for kids,
Mm-hmm.
going into clinics and laboratories, and kind of like redoing their whole lab. Um, it was some of the best work I think I've ever done, really, as a human, right? So at that point, and I did so much when I was on the boat, and I ended up getting capped to first class, which was amazing. And I think just my time in the military, I was just always really good at doing the things that people didn't want to do that would advance your career, right? I loved getting in front of groups of sailors, rallying them, inspiring them to do something, not only in their main job, but like, put on this event, or let's do this workshop, or let's, volunteer at the shelter. Like, I was always that guy, um, because I knew there was kind of like something that, I ended up reading this book from Zig Ziglar, when I first started in late 2015. And he said, you can have all you want in life as long as you're willing to help other people get what they want.
Yeah.
And when I read that, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, that's what leadership is. Like, that's what my chiefs and my lieutenants preached.
Mhm.
Help your sailors and help your staff, get to where they want to go, help them advance, get them opportunity. So I just kind of like, I learned all those principles, like discipline, leadership, accountability, all the things that our superiors would, preach into us, as young bucks in the military. And then as you start to, grow and make rank, and you get more responsibility, um I just really tapped into that, and I figured, like, I can do this on the outside. So I started to have these mental shifts where I'm like, okay, I have all these skill sets, they're transferable into the business world or entrepreneur world somehow, right? And
Mhm.
after seeing what I saw in the Pacific Islands, and I saw how families and kids were sleeping in these little tiki huts, they didn't have shoes, right? They didn't have like all these things that we take for granted sometimes in the United States. I was like, I want to be able to do more and give more for people like this, but not just with my time, because my time is limited. I only have 24 hours a day. But if I had more money, I could have a bigger impact,
Yeah.
right? People say that, money doesn't buy you happiness. Well, have you given enough away? Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a part of 2 organizations that I'm very proud of. Pencils of Promise, every time, every 25 grand we raise, we build a school for kids in Mexico, right?
Oh yeah.
And the other programs called RIP Medical. Every dollar we raise, we eradicate $10 in military medical veteran debt. And as you know, when you go out, get out the military, you go get rated and evaluated by these medical examiners and figure out what your disability is and what percentage you're going to get 10, 20, 30, 50%, or even 100% possibly. And what does that mean? A free check for the rest of your life if you can get 100% and medical for 100%. So many people don't get rated what, because the system's really kind of rigged against you if you think about it. Like they don't want to necessarily give you 100%. You have to go to the right examiner, get the right questions, make the right appointments, and you have to be very proactive on all your medical stuff to get the proper rating. But most veterans don't get the proper rating, so they need financial aid for their medical problems, their back, their joints, their PTSD, their everything that's wrong with them. So RIP Medical helps them get that money for their medical when they get out. But yeah, that's, I wanted to figure out like how can I be a part of more organizations like that, make more money, give to them, because I know they're going to have a bigger impact versus me going to volunteer my time. And volunteering is great, volunteer your time, but if you can make more money, you can have a way bigger impact.
Absolutely.
That's the shifts that I started having after that deployment. And so when I got back, I was like, I want to find something. Like I was so driven and so motivated not to just, I had made E6 at that point, getting capped to first class and making E6 in the Navy. I was in for 5.5 years at that point, and the average time it takes someone to make E6 is like 12 years typically.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I'm probably gonna, if I do this, I'll be a senior chief, master chief, or I'll probably become an officer. That's fine, but I want to do something bigger than that. I want to be able to make as much money as I can so I can give as much money, not only with my time, but with my money, and build teams, do something on the outside. So I was just up one night looking up stuff online. And I basically just came across like online marketing. And I started to realize that there was businesses on, your local listings on maps. And I'm like, okay, how do these businesses get on Google for me to click? Like if I need to find a carpet cleaner in my city, how is this guy ranked number 1 or 2 versus like all these other companies ranked on page 2 or 3? Like I'm never going to go to page 2 or 3. You're always going to click on page 1 or 2. All right. Or at the top of the search engine. So I started to connect these dots, and I realized that there was a market for local brick and mortar businesses in my city or all over the world that are willing to pay someone to help them get customers. Right. So that's when I really started like research, like what are Facebook ads? What are Google search ads? What's YouTube ads? Now today we have TikTok ads. TikTok wasn't around when I started this.
Yeah.
So I just started to connect those dots, and I learned how to do SEO, and it was a process. It was a lot of research. It was a lot of late nights. Like I would wake up at 4 a.m. every day. I would go to the gym till about 6 a.m. and then I had to be at work for 7. So in between there, I had to drive and shower. I'd be at work from 7 till about 5 p.m. And then at 5 p.m. till midnight, I was researching, I was taking notes, I was prospecting, I was calling clients, I was emailing, I was text messaging potential business owners that I could work with. Hey, do you guys need more customers? Right. And I did that, and I became quite successful. And I started doing SEO, ranking people's websites online and getting them ranked above their competitors. And by month 3, I was making about 20 grand a month, which was at that time, I was making in the Navy, maybe 5 grand a month would be, you get BAS and BAH.
Wow.
As an E6 in San Diego, somewhere around there, I can't remember, but I was doing really well,
That's awesome.
and I was like, this is great. I found it. So I just kept going from there.
Yeah.
And I did make a shift into paid traffic because SEO is a 30 day to 180-day process to get results for clients. And then I did have to make a shift into paid traffic because there was and you talk about like you learn your biggest life lessons going through, you know, crashes and mistakes and bottoms where you feel like. So
Yeah.
I had probably at 18, 19 clients ranked like number one or number two for their niche, like carpet cleaning or dental, in their city, you know, San Diego, Escondido, Las Vegas, whatever. Because that's what you search. Like if you need a carpet cleaning company, you'll say carpet cleaning company near me or carpet cleaning company Vegas or something like
Mhm.
that. And I woke up one day and all my clients' websites were like disappeared from page one from their searches. And
Wow.
turns out there was this massive SEO update that came out that just crashed my business. You know, so I had to get into paid ads. I lost half of those clients.
Holy cow.
Half of them stuck around, and then I sucked at paid ads. God, I didn't know paid ads. I knew the SEO game, so it forced me to make a pivot. Like at that point, most people would probably say, "Oh, this is too much. I quit." But no, you have to, when things change, you have to pivot. You have to stay in the game and you have to make a pivot and stay in the game. So I learned paid ads and I learned how to put $1 into a Facebook ad and have it print $5, $6 out for my clients. Basically, that's
Yeah.
pretty much how it works.
Wow.
So that's what I learned how to do. You know, and through that process, I had Master Chiefs come up to me saying, "Hey, Doug, I'm 45 years old. I'm I'm about to get out the Navy. I do not want to go sit in the classroom with 19-year-olds. How do you do what you do?"
That's
So just
awesome.
that's exactly how I got into coaching and education because so many veterans were like, "Hey, Doug, how do you do what you do? You know, that teach me how to do that too." You know, and that's transpired into what I'm doing today. So
Wow. All right, back talk with Navy veteran Douglas James from the douglasjames.com. So, Douglas, I had a question for you. You talked about several years ago when you were ranking websites, which was a real popular, fun thing to do.
mhm.
And years ago, when I was following Pat Flynn, uh, what was it? Smart passive income. Um, I was always fascinated by how he was talking about how you're getting his website ranked or inventing a new business based off solely ranking the website. And he talked quite a bit about that on a number of his podcasts and a lot of his information. And remember back what would happen was Google would come out with an update and everything would change and all these people would have to scramble to rank the website in a different way now. I mean, I remember
Yeah.
backlinking was a big thing. Like you got to get other people to put links to your website and all of a sudden Google valued that heavily. And so the more backlinks you had, all of a sudden you were ranked really high.
Yeah.
And it was just a constantly changing environment. So was it, and I never really dawned on me until you mentioned that, but I guess what happened was, you know, Google and all these other search engines figured out, oh, we could just charge people money, and then we put them at the
Mhm.
top. And so Google advertising was already happening back then, but it's become so much more now. It's all the paid traffic.
Yeah.
It's probably way more interesting. Or you made a shift to paid traffic when one of their updates changed things overnight for you. So
Yeah.
you still did you still focus mostly on paid traffic from there on out, or were you still trying to rank websites in the creative way?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I mean, at that point, I made a full pivot. I left SEO completely because you know it would take me, you know, on average 1 to 3 months to rank a client's website. If they gave me, you know, a $5,000 a month retainer plus ad spend, I can put that ad spend directly into Google search traffic or Facebook ads and immediately start generating them new patients, customers, or clients like that day,
Wow.
right? So when I saw that, it's like, I mean, you know, it's like someone giving you lemons and you keep making lemonade, you know, like it's, or you go find lemons and you're just making lemonade. Like I'm gonna drink lemonade all day. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to wait for it to grow out the ground. Like I have the fresh lemons here in front of me. So, or out the tree. So, um, yeah, you know, I made that shift because there was like a Google Maps update that came out called the Penguin, you know, and they all had these little like, you know, animal
Yeah,
names
they
when
all
they
had
came
names.
out. Yeah, so I got out of SEO and yeah, you know, Google search traffic, you know, you put an ad at the top of the page, you know, and that's literally 25% of all the clicks on page one. And maps is about 50% and then about 25 to 30% between ad traffic and your your organic listings, that's your clicks. So I mean, if you're right at the top, you're getting a majority of the clicks anyway. So it's just a great place to advertise. And I just kept on doing that in all that I do today with paid traffic.
Wow. So, yeah, that's incredible. I remember when all that was going on, I would follow it. I've made some feeble attempts at doing some things, but never really pursued it too far because it was just way too much. And
Mhm.
with the changing landscape, you never know when. And you think about like what ultimate power like a Google search engine has, where they could just change the rules overnight, and all of a sudden, some websites go to the top, and other websites go to the bottom. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
really amazing when you think about it. But so you started having chiefs and senior chiefs coming to you. They're getting out of the Navy, retiring, and they're coming to you like, help. How are you doing all this? But you started
Yeah.
to gain a reputation while you're still in active duty about making money online and doing those kinds of things. So it triggered you as far as coaching is concerned, especially on the veteran side.
You said what triggered me to do it on the coaching side?
Yeah, I said these guys coming to you kind of triggered
Yeah.
you to jump into coaching.
Yeah.
Talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that and what that experience was like.
Yeah, well, yeah, we talk about the good stuff, don't always talk about the bad stuff, right? Like I did talk about the pivot, that was like a bad thing, but it was a good thing. So like I did have the master chiefs coming up to me saying, "Hey, how do you do that?" But then I had a master chief of my own that was like trying to get me sent to captain's mast for freaking starting a business, So like
Yep.
there's always sides to it, and it's funny because there's actually, per instruction, I don't think there's still today like anything in there that says you can't have a business or be an entrepreneur. When they were requesting that you know, that uh I had to have permission to be like an entrepreneur, to be a business owner. And so
It is a fine line to walk, and when you're on active duty, you have to take that into consideration. And ultimately, if your master chief or your sergeant major or your CO says you ain't doing that, well, then what do? You want to take them to court and fight over? I mean, you got to be very, very careful.
yeah, you do.
There was there's a Navy SEAL I interviewed many years ago, and he got remember after after Bin Laden got killed, and the guy came out with the book and all this stuff, and all of a sudden he was revealing things he really shouldn't have been revealing. All of a sudden, the Navy was on the on the hunt for nailing people for
Yeah,
divulging information, whatever. He had been running some kind of business website or something. I forget what it had to do with exactly at the time. And they brought him up on charges, and he was about to go down. And then all of a sudden, he's like, a couple of years ago, I went over to the JAG on base, and I filled out this form that said I was starting this business, and the CO signed it. I wonder if I still got that piece of paper. And he went and found it, and he's like, hey, does this do it? And a, 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 C, a CO had given him permission, signed off by the JAG, for him to
yeah,
start that business. And they're like, oh, okay, all right, get out of here. He totally was exonerated of everything. And a lot of other people got in serious trouble for things that they were doing because
yeah,
he had that permission slip. But the problem
yeah,
is, if you ask permission and they say no, well, so
yeah.
do you try to do it covertly? It's you're walking kind of a tightrope when you're doing it and you're still on active duty. You just got to be careful and aware of that.
Yeah, I think I can definitely speak to that. It's definitely hard because like you have a commitment of, 8 to 10 hour days. You have duties on weekends, potentially being
Mhm.
deployed, right? But the way I look at it is if there's somewhere that you want to be, like you can't let anyone or anything get in your way. And there's always a strategic, tactical approach to everything that you do, just like they teach us in the military, right? So if you want to have a business and create wealth, the earlier the better. You have to get on that train and at least learn the skill sets, or at least get around people or go to events and experiences where people are doing it, right? Because like I tell veterans all the time, like there is an hourglass that's turned upside down on your time, right? And you only have so much sand. You also have like another hourglass that's like turned upside down in your life. There's only so much sand there, right?
Yeah.
So you have to figure out position yourself on what you're going to be doing post service the earlier the better. I mean, I would say like after your first couple years in the military, right? Start to think about like what is life going to look like afterwards. And I know a lot of young people are probably not thinking about that, but definitely your people that are, E6s or chiefs or, staff sergeants or later on E6 and above, they're like, crap, my time's coming up. And they start to get a little antsy. They're looking around like I have events here all the time. And I have people that are getting out, in the next 6 months, and they're just kind of freaking out because they don't have anything lined up. And then military doesn't really line anything up for you. Yeah, they'll put you in TAPS class, show you how to fill out a resume, show you how to do a job interview, but there's no guarantee of any kind of high paying career. So I think creating your own economy is the best route to go. And you just got to make it happen and get in the right people and listen to the right people. But yeah, I mean, it's the best decision I've ever made. And now to go back to your original question, just to learn about, to talk about, just helping these chiefs and just helping veterans in general, make that transition. It's really all up here. There's so many, because when you're in the military, you are trained basically to think a certain way, like be at work on time, you stay committed to your work, you show up for duties. If somebody calls in sick and you get called, you come in. There's all these things, and that's great. That's called to being a teammate. But you're, at the end of the day, you are fulfilling the destiny, mission, and dream of someone else, whether you think so or not. You are, right? You're doing it for our government, which is great, and it's keeping our country safe, right? You're deploying, you're doing these amazing things. But there comes a time where the government's no longer going to need your services and they're going to kick you out.
Yep.
They're either going to give you a nice little boot with an honorable discharge, or maybe you do something stupid and you get kicked. I don't know, stuff happens, but you have to start to consider what that transition looks like as early as possible, because the day is going to come. And right now, if you look at the world economy, if you look at inflation and possible recession, like when you're in the military and you're getting your check from the government every 2 weeks, you don't really care about like what's going on with the economics, and no one really talks about it when you're in the military. Like when I was in the Navy in Bethesda. My first duty station was Bethesda, Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in 2008, June 11, 2008 is when I went to boot camp. And during that time, while I was getting my check from the military, the worst real estate crash recession happened that year.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even know what was going on because I was a 19-year-old kid and I was getting a check every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
What do I
Was
care?
completely insulated from economic factors.
Yeah, exactly. So, but now that I'm in this entrepreneur business world and I'm investing in crypto and real estate and I'm looking at all these deals, everyone I talk about is in fear of 2008 happening.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But the real smart money is looking at an opportunity of a possible recession coming and a market crash as an opportunity to buy up everything while it's low, because in 3-5 years it's going to go back up, and that's the next wave of deca millionaires and billionaires are going to be made in the next 2 to 3 years, right? Yeah. So I think that's why getting in business now as early as possible, understanding how economy works, understanding how money works, is so imperatively important to your growth and transition beyond the military, right? Mm-hmm. There's so much opportunity out here. So in kind of like in my coaching and what I do with veterans, we talk about, I show them what we do, how we generate leads for businesses and how they can make that as a business for themselves. But now I'm starting to put on these exclusive events where I'm inviting military veterans to come out to spend a couple of days. Like in March next year, March of 2023, we're going to have a 300-person veteran event in San Diego. We're going to have Robert Kiyosaki there, Jason Redman as well.
Dude, how'd you get Kiyosaki? Holy cow, really?
That's a fun story. So
I'm sure it is.
Just happened to, so I live in San Diego, right? So I was I joined, do you know who Joe Polish is by chance?
No, I know Jason Redman and Robert Kiyosaki. But...
Okay. If you don't know Joe Polish, I highly recommend you look him up and check out his book, What's in It for Them. Sure. It's on my shelf over here. I mean, the title of that book, I mean, I can go into that. What's in it for them? Like anything, everything you do all in life, just consider what's in it for the other person. Because if you can help them get what they want, you can have all you want in life, right? Just like Zig Ziglar said. So, Joe Polish, I joined his program. It's called Genius Network. He basically gathers, I mean, he has some of the, he's got celebrities, he's got athletes in the room, he's got some of the biggest entrepreneurs, influencers that go to his events. So I linked up with him because at my level of the game, I'm like, this is where I need to be for me to go to the next level, right? So I go to his event. It was amazing. I leave. I'm heading to the airport. I'm like 4 hours before my flight flies out. I stop at this restaurant in a really nice part of Arizona. It was in Arizona in the Scottsdale area, and I stopped in Biltmore, which is kind of like the bougie luxury part of Scottsdale or Phoenix area. And there's a restaurant called Hillstone, and I just go up to the bar and I'm like, look in the menu. I'm like, oh, cool, they have sushi. I'm ordering sushi, and then someone sits literally right next to me, and I look over and I'm like, fuck, that's Robert Kiyosaki. It
Wow.
sits down next to me. So I just kind of gave him a minute. He was wrapping up a call, and then I said, "Hey, Robert, are we gonna have some sushi, or we're just gonna drink wine all night?" Because he was drinking wine. That's like it didn't look like he was ordering. So we just struck up a conversation, man, and we had wine and we ate together for about an hour, hour and a half, and the time just flew by. But he was telling me about, he was in the Marines for 4 years. I mean, he was
Yeah.
on the helicopters and during
Yeah.
Vietnam and all that, and told him about my experience, what I'm doing with veterans. I told him about this event I'm having in March as well. And I mean, he was just like, I'm there. Like, I'll come speak to your group. That's basically how it happened.
That's awesome.
So yeah, he's big with the veteran community. He wants to help and be useful as much as possible. So yeah, in March we're gonna have a military wealth summit. That's militarywealthsummit.com if anyone wants to check it out. But
Awesome.
yeah, he's going to be there. Jason Redman as well is going to be there, and speaking, as well as some other incredible speakers. But the whole premise of the event is like, come out to San Diego for a couple days in March with us, and we're just going to be covering the three main pillars that I think any veteran or even active duty that is looking to transition needs to understand. They need to understand business. They need to understand financial literacy, how money works.
Mm-hmm.
They need to understand how their leadership skills and military skills transition into the business world, because we all have it in us. Like, for you to excel your career in the military, you had to be an entrepreneur at heart. Why? Because you had to do great at your main job. You had to go volunteer, right? You had to volunteer not only out in town or at shelters or whatever your good cause was. You also had to go on deployment, right? Yet they wanted
Collateral
you to.
duties.
What's that?
Collateral duties.
Collateral duties. Yes, collateral duties, right?
No matter what your MOS is, you're doing all sorts of stuff. Jack of all trades. Yeah.
Jack of all trades, go to college, right? You
Yep.
have to do all these things. And then you get all these little points that add up when you go take your advancement exam. So you get, like, if you have like 4 NAMs, you get 8 points or whatever. I think the cap might have been 5. It's been a while now. Actually, I got my last eval, a promotable E6 framed over here. That's like the last time anybody had control of how much money I get to make. That was it right there. Was right there on that eval. It says promotable, signed off by my chief or whatever.
Isn't that awesome way of putting it? That's the last time somebody else had control over how much I make. Love that.
That was it. That was the last time, my last eval out the Navy, and I frame it, and that was it. Because now I'm fully in control.
It's easy when you're working within that structure of the military to you just go, 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 go. And then, because I got out after 8 years, and then I was in the reserves, and I went back on active duty after September 11th, actually ended up retiring from active reserve. But I was, in and out a couple different times. And like when I first got out, I was like, holy cow, I had no idea how like stressful and miserable everything was for me, because I was just fighting, just in the fight all day long, every day, making it happen, not going to give in. And then you get out, and all of a sudden the pack hits the floor, and you're like, whew. And then to come back into it, like after you've been gone for a while, is just, and all of a sudden you start dealing with like archaic ways of doing things, and you've been out doing the entrepreneurial thing for a little while, and Entrepreneurs, well, as joke, entrepreneurs become unemployable. They're not ever going to be able to work for somebody else, because they've seen the other side, they've seen the light.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
so, unfortunately, we're over time at this point, but I do want to give you the last word. So, what's the best way to get a hold of you? Possibly check out what you're doing with coaching veterans, and anything else you got going on, social media, promotion wise. You'd say you promote a lot of brick and mortar businesses via social media and ads,
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. My main website, you said it a few times, the douglasjames.com. That's THE Douglasjames.com. You're welcome to go there. Military Wealth Summit is something I'm super passionate about. So if you want to come find me there, hang out in San Diego, go to militarywealthsummit.com. I'm very active on social media, on Twitter and Instagram. Just, search Douglas James and you'll find me with the blue check. I'm verified on all my social medias as well. So
To pay for that now.
uh, I think the Twitter one, yeah, Elon's trying to get you to pay for it. I had to,
I think he finally actually implemented that like this week or something like that.
yeah, yeah, they're doing stuff. I've been blue check for a while just because, but the whole story with the blue check, it's like they want you to blue check because you want the blue check because when you have a certain level of influence and you have all these hundreds of thousands of followers, millions of followers, other people will start to go make duplicate accounts with your face and name on it, and other people think it's you, and then they'll DM you and say, "Hey, this is Douglas James. Like, buy my stuff," but it's not really me; it's a fake account. So
Oh
you got to
wow.
follow,
Yeah.
make sure it's the blue check because people are trying to scam people and stuff. So that's just a little tidbit.
Always something going on. Well, hey, I do want to give you the last word. Douglas, if you're talking to somebody that's in the military, looking, got a transition on the horizon, don't really want to jump into the corporate America and work in the cube farm, what kind of advice would you have for them?
Create your own economy. Start as soon as possible, and you can do anything. The things, the stories, where you come from, your beliefs that you might have now, you have the authority to change your belief system, right? You
Mm.
have the ability to say, "Hey, this is not serving me anymore. I can make a shift. I can make a pivot and focus on something else that's serving me." So empower yourself to make better decisions, get in the right circles around the right people that are doing it. If there's somewhere you want to be, go find the people doing it, right? You're the average of the 5 people you hang out with. When I was 21 years old and I was an E3 sailor, I was my 5 friends were drinking and chasing girls, right? Then that's all I knew.
Yep.
But now I have an 8-figure company. We've been on the Inc. 5000 twice, right? My top 5 friends are all deca millionaires. One of them a billionaire, right? So I'm going in a different trajectory now. So get around the right people, the right circles. Militarywealthsummit.com. That might be your gateway as well. So check it out. I'd love to see you guys there.
That's awesome. Well, Douglas, thanks for sharing your veteran entrepreneurial success story. Make us proud out there. You've done so already, and we look forward to seeing your future success.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
All right, we're Oscar Mike.